Welcome to the show, Pauline Froma. Great to have you with us. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, I'm so excited about having you on the show. You're the co-president of the Froma Media, Froma Media, and all the great travel guidebooks, which we love so much. You're the most trusted name in travel, of course.
Well, we try to be. We try to be. We have journalists all over the planet writing our books, and nobody ever paid a damn penny to be mentioned in a Fromer guidebook. We are real journalists.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, new guidebooks are always, such a great source for every traveler all over the place. So I know you guys been around a long, long time. Great
Yeah.
to have you with us, of course. We met at the New York Times Travel Show, and that was just a great show. Tell me, what are some of the benefits of a traveler going to the travel show?
Well, you can get advice from the horse's mouth at a
Yeah.
travel show. I
Hmm.
go to the travel shows. Peter Greenberg, who you might know from CBS, he's their travel editor. He's there. My dear rival, Rick Steves, is often at these travel shows,
Yeah.
Samantha Brown from the Travel Channel. And you
Right.
can ask us all questions. Also, there are these people at the booths who you walk up to and
Hmm.
they may be from the cruise line you wanted to go with, or maybe from a destination that you're interested in. And there are discounts that are only available at the travel show. So you get good discounts and you talk to real experts.
Right. And so you really can get good deals going to those travel shows, right? And I know you do a lot of them, right? Not just in New York. You do a lot of those travel shows, right?
I do a lot of them. I don't give deals. I'm only a
Yeah, yeah.
journalist. I just write about
No, but I'm saying
travel.
if you go to the travel shows, you can get a lot of good deals on travel, right? Pretty much.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
here's the best deal. If you use the code Fromers VIP
Hmm.
at travelshows.com, you get into the travel show for free.
Oh, wow. I did not know
Yeah.
this. It's great for everybody to know that. I saved some money going into the travel show. Now, you were born into travel, right? I mean, you've been traveling with your parents, what, since like what, 4 months old?
Yeah, my
Tell us about
parents always updated the book Europe on $5 a day every summer. We would go to Europe for 3 months.
that.
And
Hmm.
so when I was born, they just took me along. And, this was in the days before there were portacribs. So what they did was they would shut me into a drawer for the night, and that's where I would sleep. To this
Oh,
day, I never get claustrophobic. I don't know if there's any relation, but
right, right. So, what are your favorite memories of traveling as a young adult and a teenager
well,
growing up?
I guess when you're a teenager, you're blasé about everything. I mean,
Right,
my
right.
father used to I remember going to Paris with my father and him stopping dead still in front of a shoe store and saying,
Hmm.
"Pauline, isn't this beautiful? The French can even make the window of a shoe store beautiful." And I was rolling my eyes. But that kind of wonder and enthusiasm I think is the reason why we travel. And so, at the time when I was a teen, I was over it. I just wanted to be with my buddies.
Right.
But now I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful that I got to see the world with him. I started traveling, as I said, when I was 4 months old. So
Wow.
wherever I go, I have deja vu. And I don't know if it's actual deja vu or if I'm imagining it because I went to a lot of places that I just don't remember.
Right. Now, when you were in college, you took like what, history, philosophy. Did you decide then in college or after college? When did you decide you were going to follow in your dad's footsteps and be in the family business?
Well, actually, I was an actor out of college. I
Hmm.
toured the country with Les Miserables
Oh,
and
wow.
did a lot of shows off Broadway. I made a lot of money as a voice over person. And then, I got pregnant. I got married, got pregnant, couldn't act anymore. And this was about when the web was starting, and I
Right.
started writing and editing for the new Fromers website. We were actually one of the very first websites on travel. We were
Right.
around before Expedia, and I realized I liked it better.
Yeah. Now, your dad started the business, as I said, back in 1957, right? And he sort of self-published those books, right? Those very first books.
Yeah, he actually started a couple of years before that. It's
Hmm.
a interesting story. He was drafted into the army to fight in the Korean War.
Oh,
But
wow.
very luckily, the day before he was going to be sent to Korea, his superiors realized or learned that he spoke Russian and German because he was the son of immigrants. So instead of sending him to the killing fields of Korea, I mean, half
Hmm.
his troop didn't make it back. It was a very bloody war. He
Right.
got sent to Berlin and had a great time. All of his fellow GIs kind of stayed on the base because it was right after World War II. Europe was in rubble, and they were nervous about going out without much money. And so when he would get back from traveling, and he traveled everywhere, every chance he got as a GI, they would pepper him with questions. So we thought maybe I'll write a little book on this. He wrote the GI's Guide to Europe. It's sold out in the army. And so when he became a civilian, he thought, maybe I could do this for civilians. And he wrote Europe on $5 a day. And it
Wow.
became the best selling guidebook of all time. So kind of a fluke, but
Right.
thanks to Uncle Sam.
Now he had a special way of writing, right? It's sort of like it was a companion, right? Like that you going through a book
He's
with a friend, you know?
He was a brilliant, brilliant writer. I mean, and it just poured out of him. He was like Charles Dickens in how easily and fast he could write, and he was always brilliant in what he wrote about. He just was an amazing writer. He's still around. He's
Yes. I was going to ask, how was he
94.
doing?
He's doing okay. It's
Uh-huh.
not easy being 94. He's not really traveling anymore.
Right. Yeah.
But he and I run the books together. It's a family business.
Wow. So he's still involved in the business, which is awesome.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
A little bit. Oh, that's cool. That's so awesome. And well, all these great guidebooks that you write. I mean, one of the latest ones I know that you have out is about New York City. Tell us about that guidebook.
Yes, my Frommer's New York City. Um, I've been writing this book on and off for 20 years, and the city is always changing, which is what I love about it. It's a book that takes seriously the fact that it's gotten very expensive to come to the city.
Right.
So I have a lot of tips on how you can save. For example, there recently was a study that showed that for urban destinations, you get the best prices if you book your hotel a week in advance.
Really.
Now, that takes a lot of courage. Most people
Right.
want to have that in place. So, what
Right.
I say in the book is maybe book months in advance, but book something you can cancel. And then look again at what the prices are like. I spend all year, because I do this book every year, so I'm constantly tracking the prices in New York. I have a major spreadsheet with all the
Mhm.
hotel rates. And I
Right.
find that, yeah, prices really do plunge about a week before travel. So even though the websites will tell you, oh, lock in this price now, you'll get the best rate, that's a flat out lie.
Right.
You really want to research right before you travel if you can, at least for New York.
What about like people coming into town that want to get like Broadway show tickets or tickets to a music event or something? What is the best advice you would give them to get discounted tickets or tickets in general?
Yeah, don't believe it that the shows sell out. That's not true. The vast majority of shows are going to have discounted tickets. You can find them on apps like Today Tix. You can
Mhm.
go to the TKTS booth in Times Square. You can find them sneakily on like Seat Hub or places where people resell tickets, but you don't want to buy them too far in advance. If you buy them within like an hour or two of the show, the sellers have gotten desperate and they'll usually let the seats go for less than face cost because they know they're going to lose their shirts if they don't.
Right. What do you recommend as the most popular places to visit in New York City? I know there's Times Square. What are some of the other places that are not, the big tourist traps?
Wow. There's so many places. You have to remember that New York City has a population that's larger than 40 of the 50 states.
Hmm.
And so you have so many different interesting places to go. Like one of the coolest places, I write another book called Frommer's Day by Day, which gives you itineraries day by day. And one of the places I tell you to go is Williamsburg, Brooklyn, for
Oh,
Hasidim and hipsters.
oh,
You have this fascinating old world Hasidic community that
right.
you can walk through and see the bakeries and see the people with the hats and the taluses and all the stuff. And then you go over to the hipster central and see these incredible murals on the walls and shops and bars and great parks and really innovative, interesting daily life in Williamsburg, Brooklyn.
Wow. We have a question from a listener, Tom Payton, one of my great listeners, wants to know what is the best restaurant in New York City?
Oh, that's so hard. There's so many great ones. One of my favorites right now is a place called Gage and Tollner. It is a classic New York steakhouse. It's in
Mhm.
Brooklyn. Mae West hung out there back in the day, and then
Really?
it was closed. Yeah, it was closed, and W.C. Fields and, all of them. Then it was closed for about 40 years, but they closed it in such a way that they kept the original decor. And so the
Right.
people who reopened it have reopened it, and they're serving the things that Mae West would have eaten.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's really like this trip back in time to go to Gage and Tollner. And then on the other side of the spectrum, in Queens, there's this wacky place called Instant Noodle Factory,
Really?
where on a wall they have packages of ramen noodles from all over Asia. You pick a package and then you pick things to go in it. You enter it in a keyboard. You don't see any staff there. It
Right.
feels like the place is only filled with clients, no staff. And through a little hole in the wall, they hand you your bowl of ramen with the stuff to put on top of it, and then you go over to a little faucet, and steaming water comes out. You make your own ramen soup, and it's delicious, actually, because it's ramen you couldn't usually get in the US with really good toppings, and you have a really great meal for $5. It's probably one of the last $5 meals in New York City.
Oh, that's so amazing. So many
Yeah, it's
great
fun.
places to travel to. Also, you do guidebooks, of course, all over the world, and you have some help too, right? You have local guides that help you write those books, of course, because you can't do it all yourself. And
Yeah,
tell us
yeah.
about
We
that.
we we have local authors
Mhm.
around the world writing our books. So I've got a great woman named Anna Brooks in Paris. She writes children's books and she writes our guides. She's a Brit who's
Nice.
lived there for 20 years. I've got people who live in London writing London. I have people living in Japan writing Japan. We think by getting local authors, we're going to get a more insidery view.
Right.
As well, it means that those people can visit all the places they're covering. You go to like a trip advisor and
Right.
somebody says, "Oh my God, this hotel, it's so wonderful." Well, that person has been to exactly one hotel. So
Right.
they may not know that right down the block, there's another one that's cheaper and better
Right.
if that reviewer is a real person. I mean, there have been studies showing that a lot of what passes for travel reviews
Right.
on the internet is just disguised marketing.
Right. And some of the great places to travel are off the beaten path, right? They're not always the real popular places to go, right?
Sure, absolutely. I just was in France last summer and I went to a region called Occitanie
Mm,
where I didn't meet another American. It's this really beautiful area in the south of France that's filled with like these fortified medieval hill towns.
oh,
And they
wow.
had to be heavily fortified because in the 13th century, the Pope sent crusades against them because he wasn't happy about the way they were practicing Catholicism. And
Really?
in one place he slaughtered 20,000 people. And so you hear these hair-raising tales about their history. Try very interesting food. This is where cassoulet comes from, which is this very meaty meat and bean and sausage stew that's absolutely delicious.
Hmm.
So yeah, so they're absolutely go off the beaten path when you can.
Yeah. I mean, what are some of your favorite off the beaten path places to go in different countries?
Well, sometimes the country itself is off the beaten path. I actually am a big fan of Taiwan.
Really?
You go to Taiwan and you see real Chinese culture.
Okay.
When you go to mainland China, you have to remember that Mao, he had the Cultural Revolution,
Right.
which very systematically destroyed a lot of temples, destroyed a lot of the ways of life. So when you go to Taiwan, you see more of an unbroken tradition,
Right.
but it doesn't get many visitors. And Chiang Kai shek, when he was fleeing Mao, he stole a lot of the best stuff from the Forbidden Palace. So
Mhm.
you go to the main museum in Taipei, and it's filled with incredible wonders.
So awesome. Also, the Froma guidebooks are geared towards pretty much budget travelers, right?
We're
Not
well,
always, not always the rich and famous, is what I'm saying.
no, I feel like we are geared towards the middle class.
Middle class.
There are
Okay.
a lot of people who speak to backpackers, and there are a lot of people who speak to the ultra luxury set, but
Right.
nobody's really speaking to the middle. And
Right.
so, yes, we do. We're very cost conscious. We don't want anybody to overspend on vacation.
Right.
So we include a lot of information on how to save, but we're not all about hostels. I got to be
Right. Right.
honest. It's more in the middle.
Gotcha. So when you travel, say out of the country, what is your actual favorite place to go to? Is it other than Japan that you mentioned? And
I'm not sure I have a favorite place. I mean, I always like going new places. On Friday, I'm going to be going to southern Italy because I've always wanted to go see the city of Matera.
oh,
Matera is this ancient city. It's one of the longest continually inhabited places on Earth. And for many centuries, people lived in caves in this city. In
oh,
fact,
wow.
it looks so ancient that Mel Gibson used it as the background for his movie on Jesus Christ. I'm blanking on the name of the movie. So you've probably seen
I'm
Matera
sure I
without
did.
realizing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, Italy's one of my favorite places. I went
Oh,
there years
yeah.
ago, but we took at that time it was a Contiki tour. But a
Uh-huh.
lot of times with those tour companies, everything is so rushed. Like they take you here to Venice, and then the next day you're in Verona, but you want to spend so much more time in a certain place, and you can't. So, do you recommend that people go out on their own, or do you recommend these tour companies at certain points in time?
There are certain tour companies, there are many tour companies that will give you a good experience, but
Really?
in my experience, there's always some bozo you wish wasn't on your tour
Yeah.
who kind of spoils everything,
Right.
and that can't be controlled. So I prefer to travel independently. That way I can shape my vacation, to my interests. And if I want to pick up tours, it's so easy to pick up day tours and
Right.
go around with an expert wherever you are. There are companies like getyourguide.com, viator.com, toursbylocals.com. There's a whole slew of Airbnb experiences. There's a whole slew who you can easily do day tours with and have that experience, but also, explore on your own. I find that when you're in a tour, too much of it becomes about the interaction between the tour members. And when
Right.
you're traveling independently, you're much more likely to meet locals and really, have that kind of experience, which to me is the heart of travel.
Right. Now you also said that you don't always have to stay in hotels, right? There's B&Bs. You said monasteries and convents are available, right?
Sure, sure. With monasteries and convents, you have to though realize that some of them come with rules. Like if you're an unmarried couple, they don't want you.
Really?
Oh, yeah, yeah, you have to be a married couple, to stay in a monastery or a convent. Sometimes there's gonna be a curfew at night, so if
Really?
you wanna go, bar hopping, maybe you don't stay in a monastery or convent. But
Right.
there's all kinds of options, uh, even staying for free. Believe it or not, there's some websites. One is called Global Freeloaders, the other one is called, Couch Surfing. And these are websites that allow people to travel for free, staying in the homes of people who bring travel into their daily lives by welcoming visitors.
Right. I know one of the great pieces of advice you gave at the travel show was to the traveler not to pack so heavy, right?
Yeah, yeah. You don't want to be a slave to your suitcase,
Hmm.
especially if you're on an itinerary that goes a bunch of different places. In my family, I've got two daughters and a husband. We all each own one carry-on bag. That's it. So
Hmm.
that forces us to pack light.
Oh, that's awesome. And you get around much easier if it's you're packing light, of course.
Oh,
And
yeah, yeah. You just wear, dark stain hiding colors.
yeah, absolutely. So, where is the best place to travel, you think, in 2024 right now? And how has the pandemic affected travel till now?
Pandemic has had some lasting influences on travel. For example, if you take a cruise right now, the
Hmm.
cruise lines are finding it hard to do their shore excursions because a lot of the guides got out of the business during the pandemic because there was no business.
Right.
So it's gotten harder and more expensive for those kinds of tours. In terms of where to go, every year we do a poll of all of the Frommer writers across the globe and
Right.
ask, where should you go? And so we try to pick places that are going to be especially good to visit in the coming year. So,
Hmm.
for example, the Cook Islands. This is an island group between Hawaii and New Zealand.
Hmm.
And for the first time in 30 years, you can get direct airfare from the US to the Cooks. And
Oh,
so
wow.
this is suddenly a place that's opened up to American visitors. And it's very much like Hawaii, but Hawaii of 100 years ago. So no highways, no high rises, deep Polynesian culture, gorgeous beaches, and much less expensive than Hawaii.
Oh,
So we're saying go to the Cook Islands. We're saying this might be the year to go to Kentucky
mhm.
because it's the 150th anniversary of the Kentucky Derby.
Oh,
So,
wow.
wow, that's going to be a party.
That's awesome.
That's going to be really fun. And there are these historic bourbon distilleries to visit. It's an absolutely gorgeous state with horse farms and rolling green hills and a burgeoning farm to table um, restaurant movement. So we think this is a really good a year to go to Kentucky.
Awesome. I never been to the Kentucky Derby, so that sounds like that would be a good time.
Sure. Probably have to get tickets. Well, I don't know if you can still get tickets. It's going to be
Yeah,
hard.
that's something to look into. You were on Kelly and Michael's show, Mark actually, and you
Yeah.
talked about the most romantic places for a couple to go to. Can you give us a little bit about that? About what some romantic places for couples to go to here in the United States?
Yeah. Well, people often think the Caribbean when they think of romance, but the problem with that, with many islands, is you need a passport,
Mhm.
but not in the Virgin Islands, especially the US Virgin Islands.
Right.
So St. Croix has gorgeous beaches and some of the most wonderful food in the Caribbean, as well as high-end spa experiences for couples. So we're saying go to the Virgin Islands. Actually, I think Kentucky was one of the places I said you could go for romance.
Right.
I'm trying to remember what the other ones were. New York City.
Really?
There's a reason why New York City is the background for all those romantic comedies. It's a very, very romantic place to visit, I think. Incredible food, incredible spas, lots of things for couples to see and do. So I believe I said that to Kelly and Mark that they
Yeah,
should
and I
go
think you had
there.
mentioned something about Maui. I remember you saying something about Maui.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Maui too is on its way back. I mean, we
Hmm.
saw the terrible fires. A lot of people don't know those were only in one substantial part of the island. So I don't want to minimize what they suffered, but you can go to many other parts of Maui still. And this is a destination that was created with couples in mind. I mean, this is a destination where honeymoons and weddings are big business, and so they really know how to do romance. So don't mark Maui off your list this year just because of the fires. They are already welcoming people back, and so long as you're respectful, they don't want people to go into the fire areas.
Right.
You will be welcomed with open arms.
What about food? I know you go to some of the best places, and but you have to have an open mind when you travel, right? I mean, to experience new types of foods, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a home cook. I After we stop speaking, I'm going to cook dinner. Oh,
Oh, cool.
I'm actually going to make microwaved salmon for the first
Really?
time.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, apparently that's a good way to cook it. We'll see.
Okay. That sounds good.
uh, yeah, so I love to do foodie experiences when I travel.
Mhm.
There are these great online businesses like Eat With and Traveling Spoon that set you up with really great home cooks in the areas you're going. And
Right.
so you might go to a place in Palermo and learn from an Italian nonna how to make pasta and the other
Oh, nice.
dishes she makes for her family, and then sit down with the family for a meal.
So nice. And I remember at the travel show, you also talked about, you have to watch out for the cheats. I mean, they are out there, right? And the people who can scam you, right? So, and it's wise to never look like a traveler. Is that true?
Yeah, yeah. When you're packing for your travels, don't pack the University of Tennessee shirt.
Right.
You don't, yeah, you don't want to look like an American. You want to blend in if you
Right.
can. I once heard a tip from a wonderful woman named Evelyn Hannon. She has passed away, but she founded a great site for female travelers called
Mhm.
journeywomen.com. And her tip was your first day in a new place, go into a very local store and buy something there, buy something small. The reason you're doing that is so you can carry the bag from that local store around as you travel. So that
Right.
even if you look totally different than everybody else in the destination, they'll see that bag and think, oh, she lives here. And
Right.
the terrible people who target tourists won't come after you.
Yeah. Never want to look like a tourist, right?
Right. If you can avoid it, do.
I wanted to ask you about airline sites. What are the best airline sites to get good deals and great airfares?
Sure. Well, we did a study at fromers.com. We have a wonderful researcher named Reed Bramblett. He did months of different searches. He did last minute fares. He did apex fares, which are bought well in advance. He did common routes. He did uncommon routes. And he found that two sister sites had identical results, but they found the lowest fares most consistently. And those two sister sites were Momondo and
Really?
kayak.com.
Kayak, yeah.
Yeah, Kayak and Momondo, and they have really good filters that allow you to filter for type of plane, for baggage fees. You can add that into your first filter, which really can make a difference because baggage fees are really crazy right now. They just last week, pretty much every airline in the United States raised their baggage fees. It's a
Yeah. Usually
total
when one
bummer.
does it, they all do it, right? I mean, they all follow suit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, the only one that didn't was Delta, and
Really?
Southwest, of course, has normal baggage fees, but JetBlue, American, United, they all went up in a bad way. And American said something a little scary. American said that it is in the near future won't be giving loyalty points to people who buy through a third party travel
Oh, really?
agency,
Wow. Yeah.
which could really reshape everything. They haven't said if they're going to do this with every third party travel agency or just some.
Right.
But this is major news. It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Do you have any personal favorite airlines to travel on, whether you're going to Europe or California?
I hate them all. They all suck.
Really? There you go.
Oh, they're all the worst. They all squeeze you into too small.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay.
What? Okay. Little technical
So
problem.
no, I don't really have. I'm a small person. I'm 5'3", so
Right.
I always travel economy. So in economy, that they're all terrible.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I
That's good to
think.
know. How do you feel about, like, a lot of times when I travel, I go to Expedia or in places like that. I mean, how do you feel about those sites?
Well, Expedia bombed on our survey.
Right.
Interestingly, Google Flights found the least expensive tickets 0% of the time. Uh,
Really?
so I'm not a fan of either Expedia or Google for
Oh, okay.
airfares or packages. They just don't find the best values mostly.
Right. And we have one more question from a listener. Have you ever traveled to a destination that you thought would be a great spot and it ended up being a little bit disappointing?
Wow, that is so hard. I once went to Akron, Ohio. I didn't think it would be great, and it wasn't. Um, Usually I do a lot of research
Mhm.
before I go someplace, so I have a good sense of whether or not it's going to be pleasing. Plus, there was a study about happiness and travel, and they found that uh, are people happier before travel, during travel, or after travel? They found that people are happiest before because you're never disappointed by your expectations. It's
Yeah,
really fun to to I don't know, watch movies in the place that you're going to travel and research it and read about it. That those are all very joyful things. Second most joyful is being in the destination, and the
right,
bummer is having to come home and deal with, mold in the fridge and too many emails and all of that
right.
stuff.
How do you feel about cruises? Do you like cruises?
I'm not really a big
Yeah, I've
cruiser.
never been on
I
a
gotta,
one
I gotta
actually,
be honest.
but, yeah,
I
uh,
mean, it's a very prefab experience. You're on a boat that a bunch of executives have jerry-rigged to get as much money out of your pocket as possible. In fact, recently in calls to investors, all of the major cruise lines, Royal Caribbean, Carnival, Norwegian, and the like, bragged that on-ship spending is up 15% since before the pandemic.
oh,
And
wow.
why is that? A lot of it has to do with they sell these packages. So you buy, say, a drink package in advance because on most ships you have to pay extra for Coca-Cola, for alcohol. So you buy a drink package, you think you're being smart. No, you're spending too much. They're inflating the costs of a lot of these packages, and doing things ad hoc is usually better.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, cruises, certain ships, expedition cruising can get you to parts of the world you'd never get to otherwise. So that's a great blessing.
right,
River cruises take you to, the heart of different continents. So those can be great, although those are really only for older people for the most part.
right.
And as you saw, if you saw my speech last summer, we rented a boat from a company called Le Boat. It's one of many, and
Okay.
we drove it ourselves. We'd never
Oh,
driven a boat before.
really? Oh, that must have been
Uh,
fun.
oh my goodness, it was a little scary at first because the guy who taught us, this was in France, in Occitanie,
Wow.
really didn't speak good English. So he was teaching us in Franglish.
Wow.
But it was a lot of fun to be driving our own boat. That's the kind of cruise I like.
That's awesome. Any new, guidebooks that you're working on currently that you could tell us about?
Oh my goodness, we always have guidebooks that we're working on. I'm editing one right now to Nashville and Memphis.
Oh, one of
Uh,
my favorite places right there.
really?
Yeah. I've
So
been
you're a
down there
hot
many
chicken
times.
fan.
I'm a huge Elvis fan.
Oh yeah, yeah. So lots changing and lots of interest in Nashville and Memphis.
Mhm.
I just finished a new one on France because the whole country, because there's going to be a lot of interest in France coming up thanks to the Olympics. We're going to be seeing different parts of that beautiful country on TV, and I think it's going to spur a lot of people, rightly so, to want to visit there.
And tell us how you could get your great guidebooks and keep up to date with everything that you're doing.
Well, please visit us at fromers.com. That's FROMMERS.com. We have a lot of great information, a lot of which I've discussed during this interview. Uh, and our guidebooks are, they are sold here's London, here's Paris. They
Wow.
are available wherever guidebooks are sold. And Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all those places.
I read something, I don't know if this is true or not, over 75 million guidebooks or something like that you guys have?
We have sold 75 million since
75 million. Oh my
1977.
God. Wow, that
Yeah,
is correct.
it is correct. Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
amazing. That's
You
amazing. It
know,
really is.
people think they're old-fashioned, but I'm a member of a group called Girls Love Travel, where people post on Facebook, "I'm going to London. What should I see and do?" And
Right.
people put up the craziest, weirdest recommendations, and then 500 people put up recommendations, and it's just so much easier to just get a book written by an expert, a person who is not there to sell you anything, because there's no sponsorship in these books, as I said at the beginning. You
Right.
know, everything is in here because we think it's the best. And we also will tell you when something is not worth your time,
Right.
when a tourist attraction is a ripoff. It's so much easier to plan with a book.
And you keep everything up to date. I mean, you're constantly updating stuff every year.
Constantly updating
Yeah.
all the time. Yeah.
Right. And you have a podcast, right? Tell us about your podcast.
Well, I was on radio for 20 years, and then at the height of the pandemic, my radio station went all politics. And
Yeah, I
so
used to
we
work
got
for
the
that radio station, so I know what you're talking about.
yeah, yeah. And I wanted to keep our audience, so we have the Frommer's Travel Show podcast now.
Mhm.
The
Right.
New York Times called it one of the 13 best for travel, which was a really nice thing of them to say. And we talk about the news in travel. We try and interview people from all over the world, to get the inside view of different cultures. We,
Right.
we try to keep it fun.
Right. I've been interested in travel pretty much my whole life. And I used to work for Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, the television show.
Oh, wow.
So I was an
Oh,
assistant to
my
Robin
goodness.
Leach back in the
Huh,
day. So we used to, Robin used to travel all over the world, but we focused on the rich and the famous and that type of
right.
thing. But so that was always
Did
fun
you
and
eat a lot of
interesting.
caviar?
Yeah. Robin, yeah, actually he did. He liked his champagne and caviar. He really did.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yep. So, but it was fun. Yeah, that was a fun time. But I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me, and we got so much great information tonight, and we
Thank
look
you.
forward to getting all your great guidebooks. Thank you so much for taking the time out to hang out with us.
Oh, it was so fun. Thank you.
Okay, Pauline, thank you again. We'll talk soon, and we'll have you back on.
Fabulous.
Absolutely. Have a great night.
You too. Have a good one.
Take care. Bye bye. All right, everybody. Well, that's Pauline Frommer from the Frommers, the most trusted name in travel. I hope you enjoyed that so much. Coming up on Celebrity Spotlight, who do we have next week? I think let's see, Marilyn Sobel's going to be here. Okay, she worked with some of the biggest names in Hollywood, and she worked with people from like Leonardo DiCaprio to Woody Allen to TV shows like Sesame Street, Barney Miller, Sex and the City, so many shows. So Marilyn Sobel will be here. She is a great actress. She's been around in the business a very long time. Worked with so many big Hollywood names and stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. My good friend Danny Stefanetti is going to be here too. She's a country artist. She was been on the show before, and she's coming back. So that's going to be fantastic. I can't wait for that. I want to thank you, all my listeners that listen to this show every week. It's been fun doing this. It's the new Celebrities Spotlight on Star Radio, and I want to thank Cindy from Lake Ronkonkoma, my good friend Beryl Bellis, Tom Payton, of course, my mom in Brooklyn, Marty in Gravesend, and to everyone out there that listens to this show every week. I really do appreciate it. And I also want to thank Elaine Franklin. And she, of course, donated those books to the show. Once Upon a Time in Beverly Hills, we had some winners. Cindy Guzzo, Lake Ronkonkoma, was a winner. Radio Ruby Tuesday was a winner. And my good friend Beryl Bellis was also a winner. She's also a great listener of Celebrity Spotlight. And another chance to win next week here on Celebrity Spotlight. We're going to be giving away something. So I'll give you all the information about that next week when we talk. I want to thank you so much for joining me. It's been a fun night, a very informative night. And please go out to Amazon, pick up some of the Frommer guides, or go to frommers.com. And again, thank you, Pauline Frommer, for joining us. It's been a fantastic time. Everyone, I wish you a great weekend, great week. and we'll catch you Monday. And have a very nice night.